Hey, welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. I'm super excited to be joined by a visionary leader. That is John Gallagher. John has over 25 years of experience in leadership and lean methodology, and he's become a renowned consultant and coach to some of the world's most respected companies, many companies that certainly all of our listeners have heard from. John Gallagher, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here, Shalom, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Let's do this.
Absolutely. John, you're the founder and CEO of Growing Champions Coaching and Consulting. You are a respected authority in your field. John, where did you catch the bug of leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. I could go back to a story 25 years ago where my mentor put me in a leadership role when I was too young, didn't know how to spell leadership. He gave me the book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, walked through that thing with me chapter by chapter, and I was hooked on the topic of leadership. And it's something that I've been growing on daily since.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I've read a little bit about your background, and I know you have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, but it's very interesting. What I love, and I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about, is that your faith is really important to you and guides so much of what you do professionally. So I'm curious how that has come together, and have you always been a man of faith?
I've always been a believer. I grew up in the Catholic church, went to school in Catholic school. The nuns slapped my wrist and things like that. But in terms of my faith and how it really became part of who I was, became very important to me. A similar time frame, about 20 years ago in leadership, when I had a pastor tap on my shoulder at this line in the grocery store, asked me where I was from. And we had just moved to a city in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we were looking for something. We didn't know exactly what that was. We weren't meeting people. We weren't making friends. We weren't getting connected. And he saw I had a West Virginia shirt on. He was from West Virginia. And he said, hey, if you don't have a church yet, you ought to come and see us. I'm a pastor at a church down the street here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I tell you, when I walked in there, it was something that I knew from a feeling standpoint that I was supposed to be in that place. And it was different. It was a place of contemporary worship music. It's a place that had a message that was relevant and fill in the blank, much like a John Maxwell teaching methodology. And I kind of knew where I was supposed to be, that I was supposed to be there, but I also knew I was uncomfortable. Hadn't been used to the band type contemporary worship music, but really became interested. And as a result, engaged, became part of the leadership team there at that church as well. So it's just something that's a gift of mine that's been there, but I'm glad that God found me in that grocery store checkout line in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
So grateful that you're sharing your inspiration with all of us over here. Again, I'm chatting with John Gallagher, Jr., faith-based executive coach, performance consultant, and advisor to some of the world's leading organizations. John, what I want to spend our couple of minutes talking about is your powerful and unique methodology, the greatest story ever told. I know it's helped so many folks. Tell us what it is and why it matters to our entrepreneur listeners.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think about this when folks get started in the organizations that I work with. One of the first questions I ask them is that, are they really sure they're ready to change? They've got to make that decision ultimately that the place that they want to go is going to be uncomfortable, and people will change when the pain of remaining the same in terms of where they are is greater than the pain of the change itself. And not just from change. Anytime we go into something, whether it's our fitness or even discipline of faith, it requires a lot of work, and that work is uphill. But the greatest story ever told, when I think about that uphill and what that story is at the end, is looking to make an impact with people. And the fact is, somebody's going to be asked one day, and it might be a family member, a coworker, or a good friend of yours who's made a positive impact on your life. And when they write your name down on that list, that to me is the greatest story ever told. So you got to be intentional at creating those relationships that you have, and you got to be successful so other folks will follow you as well. So bringing the leadership, faith, and really the business teaching of lean together in one place allows us to create that story.
It's, again, a powerful and unique methodology, the greatest story ever told, chatting with John Gallagher. John, I want to make sure our listeners walk away with a homework assignment, something that they can put into practice in the week ahead that could perhaps make them a stronger professional, a better individual, and certainly a more effective entrepreneur. What would you say that homework assignment should be?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that question, Shalom. And I tell you, it's an easy answer for me. And one word answer is intentionality. Once we make improvements, well, again, whether it's in our fitness, our health, or at our workplace, and we roll that ball up the hill that's really difficult, sometimes when we walk away from it, if we don't put the disciplines and habits in place to hold that ball in place, the ball rolls back downhill. And we often have stories, myself included, of times where I've lost some weight, but then I end up putting more on than I started with to begin with because I wasn't prepared for the disciplines. So the folks have got to document their time. If you don't plan your time, somebody else will. You got to be very intentional. If you want to show me, if I want to know what type of leader you are, I'm going to ask to look at your calendar. And there's a tool that I use called the Ideal Week. In fact, I'll be willing to share it with the listeners. We can talk about that at the end. If they just message me, I'll share that tool with them that allows them to plan their weeks and putting the disciplines and habits in that calendar that allow them to plan the time to get those things done. And then opportunity really to reflect on it at the end of each week because they won't be perfect. What's going well and what isn't going well and how do they make changes to that schedule. So intentionality, scheduling that time for the disciplines and habits you need.
Well, John, you're not shy about sharing the resources that you have available, and I want to make sure we end with that. John, you have a podcast, you write regularly. How can we get in touch, and how can we continue to be inspired by your work?
No, I appreciate that. Appreciate the time today. My website is coachjohngallagher.com. There you can find the links to my social media profile. I'm most active on LinkedIn. But thank you for sharing that. I also have a podcast, the uncommonleaderpodcast.com, where I interview other leaders just like this who are really trying to make a difference, make an impact in an uncommon way. And I have a weekly newsletter I call the Champions Brew, which comes out on Friday mornings that you can sit down with your coffee in 15 minutes and read it and get a few leadership tips as well.
Awesome. John Gallagher, we'll be right back. Thanks so much.